All right, what up, Nerd Squad? Thanks for stopping in and checking out another one of my videos that I got for you today. Today, I'm going to do a no bullshit assessment on Transformers War for Cybertron Part 2, titled, I believe, Earthrise. I'm not going to do a full-on review. I'm not going to go episode by episode. I'll just kind of highlight some of the key points that I noticed in it, what I thought, kind of my overall feeling about it. Moving forward, I'm not going to touch on Part 1 very much, other than to say, we did do a podcast on it, so if you want to check that out, make sure you go download and listen to that. Me and Creeder and that give a no bullshit assessment on what we thought of Part 1. And all I will say about it before we jump into this is Part 2 was Part 1 to us, and in my opinion, was super disappointing. Being big Transformers fans, we were really, really disappointed in the first one. I honestly, for this first 6 episodes, found it very difficult to even sit through. It was a letdown, and I was super bummed about it. So, full disclosure, I'll be completely honest, this one snuck up on me. That's how disappointed I was in the first part. I didn't even pay attention to when the second part was coming out because I didn't care. And again, me being a Transformers fan, that was a kind of a hit. It was a bummer for me. So anyway, it definitely came out. It is on Netflix. You guys make sure you check it out. There's 6 episodes. They're only about 20, 24 minutes each or something like that. So it's not too hard to get through. I will say for this part, I guess Part 2, if that's what they're calling it, Earthrise, this was much better. It definitely still wasn't great in my opinion, but compared to Part 1, this was way better. They did a much better job with the writing, the character development, even some of the action stuff that took place in it. So it was definitely better. Again, I'm not going to tell you it was the greatest thing I've ever seen because it still definitely was not. We pick up with this as all of the Autobots have left Cybertron, or so we think. There's a handful that remained. They are kind of freeing some of the prison camps. They're trying to get people out, including Decepticons. We go to find that Megatron is using whatever Autobots and Decepticons he can find, and he's salvaging their Energon and their Spark to fuel his Project Nemesis, which is this big spaceship that he's going to use. And you see it later on as the episodes move on. And that's kind of Episode 1 really kind of focuses on that, the few that remain on Cybertron and kind of what's taking place there. We move into Episode 2 and we see Prime and Bumblebee get captured for a small amount of time. They end up getting brought before the Quintessons. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it. If you remember from the movies, I can't remember if it was movie 3. There's so many of them now. But anyway, the character Quintessa, when she made an appearance, that's basically what this character is. Or she, I guess, technically is basically modeled after what this Quintesson, the judge or judges are. And basically what this thing is, it's like this giant floating thing that has like 5 or 6 heads all the way around it. And they all have their own look and personality and voice and stuff like that. And they kind of argue amongst themselves. And I guess they're like the ultimate judge of things, so to speak. And I guess there's multiple of them. I'm not super familiar with them. This one specifically, his name is Decius. Refers to itself as Decier, the breaker of chains. I don't know if that's like some sort of a Game of Thrones shout out to Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen, who has her 30 different titles that she puts in her name or what, or if they just felt like this was funny to do. I don't know. I didn't see how it was necessary, but they definitely make a note to call it Decius, the breaker of chains. This thing's weird though. It's got these like tentacle things. It's kind of floating. And what it ends up doing is one of the faces, I guess that, I don't know if it controls one of the tentacles or all of them or what, but it ends up cutting off all the faces besides itself off of the head of this thing just to be the one sole face and decision maker and whatever else. Is kind of weird, but I don't know. I guess it makes sense as far as if you're watching it. Kind of getting halfway through the series was when I started to really pay attention and notice some of the things I was having heartache with in Part 1. And one of those things being that Optimus Prime, whenever he moves, whenever he twists his torso, the front section, which would be like the grill of the truck, it moves very fluidly. It looks like body movement. And it just doesn't work for me. I mean, these are robots. And you even see some of the other Transformers, whether it's Autobots or Decepticons, when they move their waist, it's way more mechanical in nature. You can tell that it's, like swiveling versus bending, so to speak. But for whatever reason, Optimus Prime moves like a human being, and I don't know, it misses the mark for me. The other thing that I have a lot of heartache with in this series, and I said this in the podcast for the first part, is this single noise that it makes when they transform. And it's a legit transformation noise that you would expect from a Transformers movie or cartoon or series or whatever, but everybody has the same noise. It's the same every time any of them transform. I addressed this in the podcast, and again, I could be missing the mark here. I could be wrong. My feeling on it is one of two things. One, they're either too cheap to make different noises for each of them, or two, before the Transformers make it to Earth and become Earthbound machines, whether it's cars, trucks, or jets, they all transform the same, so the name would, or the noise would stay the same, versus when they're on Earth and they transform into a truck or a jet or whatever, there's different noises. So if you pay attention in the movies, when they transform, you can tell if you're not watching the screen, basically which Transformer is transforming. In this, you can't. It's the same noise for all of them. And that loses it for me. I really like the sound effects and the sounds that come with Transformers and this and that. So that for me is a miss. I just didn't like it that much. But anyway, as the story kind of continues on about halfway through, they end up at this space bridge that has this giant ship trying to go through that I guess got abandoned. So it's like stuck halfway through. And they go onto it, and there's like one Transformer left on it. It's this giant scorpion type character. Megatron shows up. Everybody's fighting everybody. Megatron and Optimus Prime have to keep helping each other. But it's not good. It's like they keep helping each other, and then Megatron stabs Optimus Prime's back. And then 2 minutes later, Optimus Prime is helping him again, and then he betrays him. Then he helps him, then he betrays him. And it's really kind of redundant. It's like over and over again. And Optimus Prime has more opportunity and chances than ever to kill Megatron, and he just won't do it. He just flat out says, I won't do it, I won't do it. He just keeps helping him. And at one point, Megatron even tells him, killing me off would literally be the best thing for you to do. And he still won't do it. And I get it. I get that that's Optimus Prime, and that's part of why everybody likes him so much and his leadership style and all that. I fully get it. But it almost in this series makes him come off as so stupid because he just keeps trying to help Megatron and getting betrayed and betrayed and betrayed. And honestly, Optimus Prime is lucky as shit at this point that he hasn't been killed by Megatron yet, because he's had every opportunity and he just keeps avoiding it somehow. So Megatron is doing all he can to kill Prime. Prime just won't die. Prime has every opportunity in the world to kill Megatron and just won't do it. So it's kind of annoying that they do that so many times throughout these episodes, where if they had a battle with each other once every season or part, I think one out of every 6 episodes, they had a really nice big battle. That would be great. But this is like watching two bickering kids just go at it in the backseat of your car, and it's just annoying. And it gets really annoying. And for me, again, that just kind of like, it made it harder for me to really truly be into it as much as I wanted to be into it. But it kind of just is what it is, I guess. Episode 5 and 6, though, this is where this story really picks up. And this is where it actually gets pretty good. In episode 5, they end up in the dead universe. And what happens is Optimus Prime's ship is trying to make its way, hurry up to get through the space bridge. Megatron shoots this giant space weapon at it and blows up. And they end up in this just dead space, the void, I guess, of space. And you see a bunch of old Transformers and stuff kind of just floating around out there. And I think somebody even said that the Fallen, that's where he originated from, or where he came from, or was banished to, or whatever. But we end up meeting up with Skylynx, and Skylynx has this story and how it got banished because it was being too greedy, and trying to take more power than it needed and stuff. So it kind of helps Optimus guide him in his path to get out, and is very much going to get redemption for what all he has done. And he's talking with Optimus Prime while they're in the dead space and telling him, I need redemption. I've had all this time to think about myself and how I am my own worst enemy. And it ends up being that he tells Optimus, you're the only way I can get out of here. You can help me out of here. Will you do it? And so Prime uses the matrix of leadership that he has in his chest to open up the portal and get out. And he opens it up to where they can get out of the dead space. Meanwhile, Megatron is back in his ship, and he can see what's happening because he's in the dead universe as well. And Galvatron shows up and is telling him, you have to kill Prime, you have to kill Prime, you have to do it now, you have to do it now, all this stuff, kind of trying to guide him in what's going on and what he needs to do. Well, it ends up being they start shooting at Optimus Prime's ship, and Skylynx jumps in front of it as Optimus and the Autobots are getting out, and Skylynx basically sacrifices himself so that they can escape. And so they get out, and Megatron's ship gets out, and they end up kind of in a, you know, space battle. And they're outside. You can see that they show the planet. They're outside of Earth now. They're just out in space, but you can see Earth in the distance. And kind of the same as what we just keep seeing. Megatron, they end up in the same ship fighting each other, and Megatron's still doing everything he can to kill Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime still has every opportunity to kill Megatron and won't do it. And this, that, and the other. And it ends up being Megatron ends up taking the matrix of leadership from Optimus. And as it kind of finalizes out, we see that there's a huge explosion. One of the 3 ships that's out there explodes kind of between the 2 main crafts, the Nemesis and the Ark. And a bunch of shrapnel and stuff ends up kind of just getting shot down to Earth. And we see it from the Earth perspective all these things are kind of raining down on Earth. And this is ultimately kind of where it ends for this part, for Earthrise. And you just see a Velociraptor kind of poke its head out of the grass and kind of is looking out, trying to figure out what's going on. And it zooms in on its eye, and it blinks its eye and then opens it, and you can see that it's mechanical in nature, or some kind of a lens or screen, and it's got some, you know, electronics happening within it. So that's where it ends. And I think that's great. I think the last 2 episodes made the series. I think that's exactly where this needs to go. I think it's perfect. As long as they continue to build on this story and get past the catastrophe that was part 1, I think we're in good shoes. And I think that we are going to be okay watching part 3 when it comes out. I don't have any details. I think it's going to be called Kingdom, but I'm not sure as far as when the release date of it is. I'm assuming it's going to have more maybe of the Dinobots, or maybe some of the Beast Wars type stuff. I don't know. Not a lot has been said about it yet, but that's kind of the direction that they're pointing in. So I will be excited for part 3, because like I said, part 2 definitely ended on a much stronger note than part 1 did. Part 1 sucked. Part 2 was pretty good, so I'm hoping that part 3 is really good. So we'll see. One of the other major complaints I had, I was going to say this earlier and I forgot, is when Optimus Prime and Megatron are fighting each other. There's one point when Megatron gets basically impaled by this huge metal spike type of thing, or just big metal pipe. And he's like visibly in pain, and Optimus is there helping him, and he's trying to save him, and he tells him he's going to pull it out, and he's like, this is going to hurt. And so he pulls it out, and Megatron screams and all this shit. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is going to hurt? What the fuck? How is this going to hurt? You're a robot. And I don't remember them feeling pain in any of the previous stuff, but I don't know. Maybe I was blind to it. I don't know. That's just kind of my take. I was not thrilled with some of the small stuff like that, but I will say this was a definite improvement. If I had to give these series a ranking, I would say part 1 of this thing was 2 maybe out of 10. I would say this one's up to 5. Again, it's not great. And the hard thing is I'm judging a lot of stuff, especially animated stuff, off of what Clone Wars did. So Clone Wars set the new standard for what my expectations in an animated series are. And slightly unrealistic, but not totally. I think that's kind of the standard that needs to be met at this point in time. So definitely a significant improvement than the first part. So I would definitely check it out. I will most likely not watch the first part again. If I do, it won't be until part 3 comes out, so I can redo the whole story and get the whole thing all at once. And maybe that'll change my mind. And I hope it does, because again, I'm a huge Transformers fan and I don't want to be let down by this stuff. But part 1 was awful, to say it nicely. It was awful. So I'm glad that there's some improvement. I'm optimistic moving forward that part 3 is going to be pretty good. So we'll see. We'll just have to check it out. But let me know what you guys think. Leave me some comments or hit me up on Instagram, Sector 7 Podcast on Instagram. Let me know what you guys are thinking. If there's any content you guys want me to go over, if you have something you want me to do a no bullshit assessment on, let me know. I'd be happy to do it. I'm more than willing to dive into different realms of the nerdverse and stuff like that. So let me know what you guys want to see or what you want to talk about, and we'll keep things moving from there. But as always, guys, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Make sure you listen to the podcast. Make sure you subscribe on here and do all that fancy social media stuff. But yeah, be good to each other. Be good out there. Stay safe. All that good stuff. We'll see you in the next one. See ya.